Personnel Committee on the 7th of January 2021. Is this going to be recorded?
Just started recording, Chair.
Right, thank you very much. I'm Councillor Doreen Jones, and I'm going to welcome everybody, wishing them all Happy New Year. Hope we have a better year than last year, but at the moment it doesn't look like it. Nicola, would you do a roll call, please?
Yes, certainly, Chair. Okay, got Councillor Doreen Jones, Chair.
Right.
Councillor Dean Corsier.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Rob Jones.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Anthony Taylor.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Sharon Freegard.
Present.
Councillor Edward Latham.
Yeah, present, Nick.
Thank you. Councillor Sandra Miller.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Joe Hale.
Present, Nicola.
Thank you. Councillor Nigel Hunt. No. Okay. Councillor Simon Noyle.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Jane Jones.
Yes, I'm here, Nicola.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Richards.
Present, Nick.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Rees.
Present, Nicola.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Lockyer.
Present, Nick.
Thank you. Councillor Carol Clement Williams.
Present, Nick.
Thank you. And then we have officers, Karen Jones.
Present, Nicola.
Thank you. And Kath Lewis.
Present, Nick.
Thank you. And we've got Tammy Davis as well.
Present.
Thank you. Have I missed anybody?
Yeah, me.
Oh, I
Yeah. No.
Oh, sorry, I got you. That's great. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Nicola. Are there any declarations of interest? No, I don't see any. Could I remind everyone to keep the mics on mute unless they're speaking, and use the usual form of signalling if they wish to speak or ask questions. And can I ask everyone to keep their phones on mute or silent? And we'll carry on then to the purpose of the meeting, which is the senior management arrangements, and those are on pages 3 to 12. And I'll take them as read unless there are any questions. Or Karen, do you want to give a brief overview of this?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make a couple of points. I think hopefully the report is pretty straightforward. Clearly, having moved into the Chief Executive role, we need to make some decisions about what happens to the job that I was in and the responsibilities that are associated with that. Because as much as I'd like to be Superwoman, I'm afraid doing two jobs isn't possible. So that's the main purpose of this particular paper. What I've tried to do when I've been thinking about the management arrangements is not just to think about what's in front of us right now, but the work that we're going to need to do as we get towards recovery. And in particular, as you heard from Howell this morning in the budget seminar, there's going to be a need to do some quite detailed work around the council and its shape and the way in which we're going to need to be planning our financial future forward. So I've been thinking about those issues when I've been putting these proposals together, Chair, I think is the thing to say. As you can see, the key recommendation is that we don't fill my post as was, and that we use the money instead to invest in a Chief Digital Officer role. I think that we'll all have experienced over the last year the real importance now of having a strong digital strategy. We already had the smart and connected strategy, but what's happened in the last 12 months has really sort of pushed that agenda forward. And we've learned, I think, through the pandemic, there's an awful lot more that we need to be doing around digital. So I think bringing in somebody who can concentrate on that for the council is going to be really important. I think that role needs to look two ways. I think it needs to look internally at the way we use digital technologies to run our services. but I think it also needs to play a strong role within the city region as well, and to make sure that we've got good support for our economic development team around the way in which we develop our digital connectivity within the area, and make sure that we're upskilling our broader population to take advantage of that. So the Chief Digital Officer role for me is going to have that dual role of looking internally, but also playing a wider strategic role in the way in which we want to drive our economic development ambitions forward. And I think, you know, as somebody who can concentrate on that, will deliver some real benefits for us. So what that means, if we use the money in that way, is that we've got to make some decisions then about the other responsibilities that sat with me. So you'll see that I'm suggesting that we move the community safety responsibilities across at the moment to Chris Millis, the head of participation, but there'll be some further work that I'll be doing over the next couple of months to look at how we bring some coherence around our community development responsibilities, all that great work that we've been doing over the last 12 months through Safe and Well, all the work you've been doing as members out in your local community. And I've started having conversations with the new Director of Education, Andrew Thomas, about how we might shape that. So there'll be a further report to come back to you in the next month or so around the way in which we look to move that work forward. But in the short term, the proposal is that we temporarily move that work across to Chris, because it'll sit alongside responsibilities then around poverty and so on, where there's a real good link there. And then really what I'm looking to do is to split the remainder of the responsibilities between myself and the Director of Finance. And when I've been looking at how to do that, I'm conscious that Howell will be retiring in the autumn. And I think it's going to be really important when we bring the new director in, that that person can concentrate on the council's financial strategy, support the Chief Digital Officer in driving forward that digital agenda, but also bring some more capacity around the work that we know we want to do around income generation and commercialisation. So I think somebody new coming into that role, that's quite a big agenda for them to deliver on. And as you know, I've got a lot of expertise myself and experience around democratic services and around the HR agenda, which is why I'm suggesting then that the head of human resources and the head of legal services report to me, but with expanded briefs. So I hope that gives you a bit of context, Chair, in terms of what I've been thinking about when I've been putting those proposals together. And as I say, there will be some further work that I'll be doing over the next month or so in relation to the education management team in particular. And I'll be taking the opportunity to look at the coherence of other bits of the portfolios as part of that exercise. So with that, Chair, there's nothing more I wanted to say by way of introduction, but obviously more than happy to take questions from members.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Karen. Right, Peter Richards.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Karen, with regards to local area coordination and building safer and confident communities, do you see that as part of how will that work with the Safe and Well? Will we be aligning systems there, or what's your views on that at this early stage?
Well, I think there's further conversations, Peter, that we need to have on that. So I've been talking with Andrew Jarrett and with Andrew Thomas about that whole area of work. There is the possibility of us creating some kind of shared role, but I've got to have further conversations with the two Andrews about that. And obviously we'll be consulting the cabinet members, yourself, Doreen and Leanne have got interests, I think, around that, and probably other members as well. So that's why I think we need to take a bit longer to just work those things through. But I think we need to be ending up in a position where we've got some really strong leadership around that, really clear about how we bring all those bits of our community agenda together. And as I say, within the next month or so, I think we'll be in a position to bring you more detailed proposals for us to discuss through on that.
I see very positively going forward, Karen, because the working and the knowledge that we've gained from the past experience over the last year, I think there's a lot of knowledge there. So thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely. And what I'm keen to do, Peter, is to make sure that we change the responsibilities within the professional structure of the council to make sure we've got the leadership capacity and that coherence to drive that agenda forward. And at the moment, I think we got bits of things sitting in different places, but with these sort of senior management changes we've got to make anyway, there's an opportunity, I think, just to make sure we build on that great work, as you say, that we've already done.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, okay. Sharon Freegard.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I got 3 questions, Karen, mainly for clarity, really, around some issues on page 6 and page 8. You've obviously given this loads of thought, and I just wondered, my first question, why had you thought about moving the community safety over to social care? You know, would that have been better? You've obviously thought about that and why you didn't. The other thing was, I think it's on page 8, it's about the Director of Finance will take over the chair of the governance. Is that right? And I was just wondering, would that be a conflict of interest? Should the chair of governance not have any, you know, input like that? It should be sort of impartial. And then on page 6, the combining of the roles of legal and democratic. I'm talking in the short term now, given where we are with the pandemic. I would have, and with the elections coming up, wouldn't that be rather a huge workload, you know, a real burden for the person, and if it's one person taking on those 2 demanding roles at the moment?
There we are then. So shall I just go through them in turn then, Sharon? So community safety, I did speak to both Aled and Andrew about community safety when I was kind of finalising my thinking on where best to put that responsibility. And I think when you understand the amount of work that's involved in the liaison with the health board, for example, across adult social care at the moment, Andrew Jarrett's view was that he would not have had capacity to have taken that responsibility on as well. It doesn't neatly fit in one place or the other. What it does do is it needs to span probably bits of the social services agenda and bits of the education agenda. So that's why I was saying earlier that there's a possibility, I think, of having a shared role there that would enable us to knit all of that together. So that's kind of where my current thinking is, Sharon. And there's a possibility that we might be able to have some support from the RPB funding as well to help us with that. So if you'll just bear with me on that. So yes, I did think about it because these days there's a strong overlap in community safety, as Leanne will know, with safeguarding. So it is important that there is that strong link there. And that's why I'm really comfortable about it sitting with Chris Millis, because Chris does really understand that safeguarding agenda. And he's been actively participating in a number of the community safety meetings over a number of years now. So he's in the domestic abuse partnership, he's in the community safety partnership, and he's also been leading for the region as well on the counter-terrorism work for schools. So I think we can be quite confident about that in the short term. But as I say, there'll be a further report back to you about that whole area around community and community development in the next month or so. Around the governance group, the way it works in practice, it's a coordinating group really, so I don't think there's a conflict of interest in the Director of Finance chairing it. Essentially, what the corporate governance group does is it looks at the governance arrangements of the council and takes responsibility for preparing the annual governance statement that comes before you as before the cabinet once a year, but also has to be signed off by the Audit Committee. So it is very much a job of chairing and coordinating that work. And within the group itself, you've got people like the head of legal services, head of property, head of finance, the head of IT, etc. All of the different officers within the council who've got lead responsibility for different elements of the council's governance framework. So the job is about coordinating it and bringing the reports forward. And then it comes into cabinet, comes into audit committee, and is externally audited as well then by Audit Wales. So I don't think you need to be worried about there being any conflict of interest around that. It's common for people in a Director of Finance portfolio to have that responsibility. And then finally on legal and democratic services, you know, in practice, it's the teams that actually do the work. So as far as elections is concerned, I'm the returning officer, so I will continue to have a very active direct involvement in the elections work, particularly with the elections events coming up. And in Rees George, we've got a very experienced elections manager. So I don't anticipate that Craig Griffiths will need to have much detailed involvement in that. But for succession planning reasons and for resilience reasons, I'd be keen over a number of years to develop Craig to be able to take on more of those deputy returning officer responsibilities. So if I'm not around and Rees is not around, you can be confident, particularly when we get to elections where we've got our multiple count centres, that we've got a sufficient group of people within the council that you can be confident will discharge those elections responsibilities competently. So I don't think we need to worry about elections and Craig in the short term. And around democratic services, there's always been a very close relationship between the legal services, particularly the head of legal services, and the democratic services functions anyway. And a lot of that goes on in the background that you probably don't see. And certainly when I was head of democratic services, I had a lot of daily contact with David Michael when he was the monitoring officer. And since Craig's been in post as well, there's been a lot of liaison between Craig and the Democratic Services team. I think we made a really good appointment in Stacey Curran to head that team up. She's new in post and does need some support to develop into that role. But again, we've got a Democratic Services arrangement that is robust. You know, it can always be improved and modernised, but I wouldn't anticipate that Craig's going to have more detailed involvement than he's already having in that area.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, are you happy with that, Sharon?
Yes, it was. I just wondered if the chair of governance should have nothing, no directorate, that's all, and wondered what other authorities did on that. But you clarified that, so thanks.
But that would come for scrutiny as well, wouldn't it? To cabinet scrutiny, cabinet.
That's right, Chair, in terms of, because the cabinet,
well.
The
Right.
cabinet have to take responsibility for the annual governance statement, so it does come back to scrutiny. And as I say, the audit committee's got a specific role. Now, as you know, at the moment, the audit committee has to be chaired by somebody from one of the opposition groups, but that is going to change now under the new local government and elections legislation that's been brought in by Welsh Government, and in future the chair of the audit committee will need to be a lay member, and you will also have to have additional lay member representatives in that arrangement as well. So I suppose in terms of that level of independence that Councillor Freeguard is getting at, that's going to come in, but it'll be through the audit committee rather than through the professional structure of the council.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
All right, Sharon. Leon? You had your hand up, Leon?
Yeah, sorry, I was unmuting myself then. Yeah, it's just a comment on the community safety part, and I think, like Karen has explained, it does sit well to go over to the education under Chris Millis, because like you've said, he is involved in a lot of things at the moment, so he does know things on the ground as such. So I welcome it that where it's gone really, and just thank you, Karen, really, for all your support for me with the community safety aspect. I'm sorry to see you go. I didn't want to lose you.
I'm still here, but in a different role, Leanne.
Yeah.
Okay. Jane, did you want to speak?
Yeah, just one question. With a bigger portfolio, will their wages go up by any increments at all?
At this stage, Councillor Jones, the proposal is that they transfer across, and there are no proposed changes to the grades of heads of service or directors. I do know that an exercise was started by my predecessor to look at roles and responsibilities. So I'm sure the Sheena will come back to you in due course. But that is, this proposal doesn't make any impact on the current pay and grading issues.
Thank you for that, Karen. Thank you, Chair.
Sharon, is that a legacy hand?
Yes,
That's
sorry,
okay.
Chair.
That's okay. Are there any more comments? Leader?
Yeah, just following on from what Karen has said, there'll also be a need to look at the portfolios and the cabinet portfolios to align them properly, because there are some areas now with COVID that do not have direct line cabinet responsibility. So that's something that I'll be looking at with Karen to make sure that we've got the right fit in the right place.
Thank you for that. Okay, are there any other questions or comments or observations? Can't see any. In that case, I'll go on to item, where am I? Item 4, any urgent items? I haven't any. So I'll thank you for your attendance.
Sorry, Chair, can I just check that
Yes.
the committee has agreed the recommendations?
The recommendations.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Thank you for that. Can I have a, well, I will propose that we accept the recommendations. Can I have a seconder?
I'll second, Chair.
I second that.
Thank you very much. In that case, do you all agree? I'll take the noes by a show of hands by exception. So there are no hands showing, and you all agree. Thank you very much. In that case, I will now close the meeting.
Yeah, and thank you very much for your support,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice quick
Okay.
meeting.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.